actively pursuing conspiracy theories or, I mean, there's a lot of them floating around out there. I have listened to Alex Jones. I don't know. It's hard for me to commit to that because while I do really love the creative sandbox of conspiracy, there are certain things that I pick and choose. Some things sound right, some things sound like they need to be questioned. I have mixed feelings about a lot of different things. But overall, I think that I stay pretty down to earth in what I think. But I guess it depends on the conspiracy theory. I guess it depends on the subject. When it comes to the moon landing, if I'm having a conversation with someone who's dead set certain that there's absolutely no chance we fake the moon landing, then I'm going to argue in favor of the conspiracy. And then maybe vice versa. If somebody is absolutely convinced it was a total hoax, I find myself leaning towards the debate of, that we did actually do it. And so, I think it just matters. It depends on what the topic itself is, really.
Devil's advocate, huh?
Right, yeah. And ultimately with, aliens and time travel, I mean, these are things that have been the staples of what I consider to be my childhood entertainment. I don't know if you guys ever watched Quantum Leap show.
Oh, yeah.
It was a huge favorite of mine growing up. It's been one I've revisited on Netflix, a few times, and it's just the idea of time travel, going back in time and changing things. There was also other programs like Sliders. That one was not quite as popular, but that was they're going from one dimension to the other, and there's different versions of themselves in the other dimensions, and those kinds of things really sparked a lot of creativity in me just as a kid, coming up with my own little stories. I always wrote stories. I found, dozens of old little things I wrote even when I was a kid. They involve, tumbling down into some dark hole and, revealing a Narnia-esque kind of world. That's just always, to me, been really, really, really a fun form of entertainment is to just, imagine an alternate universe that doesn't have to exist, but doesn't have to be entirely different from our own.
Right. Well, how much research, drafting, storyboarding went into filming Lunopolis? Because I can see that it had to have taken a lot of effort with not a lot of budget. Am I right?
Very much so. The not a lot of budget part is always the biggest hurdle to overcome because, no matter what you can envision that you want to do creatively, you're always limited to what you can actually do. So yes, there was a lot of planning. There was a lot of discussion that we had among us about where certain things would take place, what kind of things we could pull off. We wanted to have somewhat of a public place for the climax of the film to go down. We wanted something that was relatively controllable but still somehow public, and so we had to kind of go through a lot of just different options, and creatively discuss, well, maybe this could happen here, this could happen there, maybe that would be easier to get done if we could do it this way, but we wanted to at least try and push the limits of what we could do. We didn't want to settle on just throwing it together. When you're doing it this way, I guess ultimately it falls into the found footage type category. You kind of have to let everything play out as realistically as possible. Nothing can feel set up, at least you don't want it to. You don't want it to feel like, you're leading with information that you're not supposed to have yet, those kinds of things. So we had to kind of do a lot of pre-planning in the overall structure of how it was going to come together. When we got down to sort of doing our lines and our interaction between each other, we kind of let that fly a little freely because we wanted to be as natural as possible, but still heading in the direction that we needed to go. Props and pieces and parts and things that we needed along the way, we had to kind of, have all that stuff ready to go beforehand. And so, research-wise, I feel like I've kind of already done somewhat of a lifetime of research on this kind of stuff. But one of the things I really got interested in putting together the information for this was just the various religions, specifically Scientology. I've always been very interested in Scientology. I read Dianetics, and these were things that happened years before we started writing the script. But it was kind of mysterious, and it was kind of adventurous, but you didn't know. It seemed scary. You don't even the further and further you dig, you feel like the less you know about it. And so the Church of Lunology, I felt, needed to function that way. Here's an entity that exists that is very powerful and influential in many ways, but it's still on the outskirts of mainstream consciousness. So we're not really paying attention to it, but it's always there and it's always doing something, and we don't really know what. And as are many other religions along the way, but that one just seems so organized and so business-like, and based on something one guy did, and so those things all kind of came together and really helped inspire Church of Lunology. There are videos and things on YouTube, endless hours of YouTube videos, dedicated to people exposing the experiences they had in these kinds of organizations. Also with cults like Jim Jones, those kinds of things. There's always a pattern that people follow when they participate in a group, cult like that, where they don't really know entirely what it is they're doing, but they willingly participate in it anyway. And that's kind of scary. And I wanted that to be sort of our antagonist in the story. These people who don't really know why they're doing what they're doing, but they're going to do it anyway.
Mm-hmm. Well, you said that you sometimes had to reassess a scene. Now, can we do this, and pull this off realistically, or should we try something else? I have to know, how did you pull off the scene where they're chasing the Church of Lunology in their car, and they just kind of shoot off into the sky like a rocket? I mean, was that fireworks or CGI or?
Well, it was mostly CGI. We had a couple of guys that helped us put that together. In staging it, basically, we knew a couple of things. We wanted to, because that was ultimately the moment in the film that had to convince us that what was happening was real and was something that our characters needed to fear. Up until then, it was just a lot of empty words. And then all of a sudden, something needed to happen that really shifted the momentum, and made them realize, okay, we're not just playing around here. And so we thought about how to pull that off. Ultimately, we wanted to capture we needed to capture it happening, but we didn't want it to seem contrived as to why we were shooting that vehicle drive away from us or whatever. So, we wanted to do a gravel road. If we're doing a dry gravel road, it would throw up a lot of dust. We're trying to capture a plate. We'd have to follow closely, and try and catch a clear moment, which would kind of at least justify us, filming the car if it happened. We set up that shot. We did it a handful of times, and we had a couple of guys that were pretty good special effect guys that kind of do it locally here, and helped us out with it. It was just a little bit of modeling. One guy put together the whole overall effect, and then my partner at the time put together the rest of it, just to try and give it as much realism as possible. We didn't have a budget to do lots of shots. We couldn't do it swooping around in the sky. Some of the things we would have liked to have done. We kind of wanted to have sort of a more intense, real up-close experience, but, that was just a little out of reach. So we did it the best we could, and the guys that came together and helped us out with it did a really great job.
Definitely. Something that I found, that you mentioned a minute ago, the realism of you would throw lines at each other and improvise a little bit. That is one of the things that drew me to it, was that it was as if, this is how it would probably really happen, with what was the character's name that you co-starred with? Sonny. When he just gets fed up and throws the backpack at him and said, just freaking take it, if he's in that much over his head, that's a realistic reaction, it's not, that I could see that happening. The way I first found my way to Lunopolis was actually through an obsession back then with found footage movies. I felt they had a lot to offer, and when I was finished watching, I realized I'd seen something so much more special. Do you feel that the hard-to-categorize style of Lunopolis has helped or hindered it in the long run?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know, maybe it's been a little both. Maybe it's helped it in certain respects, but in other ways it's hindered it. find that found footage film, to me, personally, feel a lot more like documentaries than they do a film, you know? And so there's something you come to expect when you're watching a documentary. You know, for instance, when you sit down, I went and saw Iron Man 3 earlier today. I enjoyed it. When you go in and sit down to that, you're not expecting realism. You're not expecting to actually believe what's happening. You just enjoy it for the ride, you know? And when it comes to something like a documentary, you go into it and you're already sort of prepared to believe it because you have no reason to think they're lying to you if they're, you know, purporting to be telling the truth. And so, you know, with found footage specifically, I think that, you know, the more your audience is engaged, you know, like I felt that way about the Blair Witch Project. That was something that when I saw it, I knew what the buzz was, I knew what the hype was, you know, and I went into it totally, you know, just deciding to believe it one way or the other. I'm just going to believe that this was really captured footage and experience and enjoy it that way. And I did, you know, and I feel like you can kind of connect to an audience a lot better in that sense because just in the very much the same way that if you're watching a YouTube video and some guy gets kicked in the nuts, you feel the pain a little more than if it happens in some dead killer movie, you know? It's like there's some way you connect to that more when you really think somebody experienced that pain or that fear, you know? I think I lost what your original question was.
Well, that's okay. We're just going with the flow here. I think you covered it mostly. Were you happy? Are you happy with the reception to Lunopolis, or did you hope for more? Or?
Oh man, I didn't go into it with any expectations. You know, I've been very happy with the reception. I think we've gotten a lot of really, really great reception to it. You know, it didn't do anything big and major, and you know, and explode on any scenes or anything. But the people that have seen it, people that have pursued it and watched it, really respond very well. You know, I mean, there's always naysayers, I think, to anything, but I have had an overwhelming positive response from the people that have seen it, and it's for the things that I at least take the most pride in. I've always been a storyteller first and foremost. I like telling stories, and I like writing, and that's been, you know, just the unique elements to this story. I've been very pleased that people have appreciated that. You know, there are things that I wish we could have done. You know, there's a million things I wish I could have done. You know, just with more resources I wish I could have had, and maybe more time and a little bit more manpower, you know. But ultimately, I had a goal. I wanted to accomplish it. I wanted to tell that story. And in many ways, I wanted to share those ideas, you know, more so than just making a movie. I really always enjoy having these kinds of conversations. And in fact, when discussing things like the moon landing hoax or, you know, the 9/11 conspiracy theories, you know, no matter what, if you talk to people about these things, they are passionate, you know, even if they're no sci-fi fan, you know, you don't have to be a fan of any particular genre to have really strong feelings about conspiracy. And that also is really what kind of helps inspire doing this. It's just that no matter what, people hear this sort of a premise and they want to watch it, to either really love it or really hate it, but it at least gets their attention.
Yeah, I think that some people had a problem with the middle of the film when they think it kind of gets bogged down with the documentary aspect a little. I think that's crazy. That made me sit up and take notice even more. Like, you know, yeah, this is actually playing like a real documentary, you know, and I mean, like a cosmic chess game playing out, and they're making a documentary out of it. I mean, this is awesome. That was my thought when I was watching it. I didn't feel that it bogged down at all. But where did you find Dave Potter, who portrayed two separate roles in it? David James, I think, and J.R.E. Hilliard, which is a corruption of L. Ron Hubbard, or an interpretation of L. Ron Hubbard.
Right.
Was it intimidating working with him?
Not at all, because Dave is about the most easygoing, fun-loving, friendly guy you could ever possibly meet. I did a lot of theater in high school and after high school, and there was a play at the university here that we were doing years ago, probably 10